this is Mrs. Brown, and today we're looking at special products. So when we're multiplying binomials, some of the special cases that occur, and actually there are three of them that we're going to be looking at. The square of a sum. So if you have a plus b in parentheses to the second, that actually means a plus b times a plus b. And it comes out to a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. You have the square of a difference, which is the same thing except it's a minus sign. So it comes out to a minus b times a minus b. This one is slightly different. You notice that it's a minus instead of a plus. That's because of the minus here. And of course, a minus times a minus, a negative times a negative is going to be a positive, so it's still positive here. So there's only a slight difference between these two, and it has to do with that being minus and that being plus. And then finally, the product of a sum and difference. So notice a and b represent both a's are the same number, both b's are the same number, but one's plus and one's minus. So that's the same as a minus b times a plus b. And what happens is the middle term cancels out. And we'll look at an example and I'll show you where that happens in a minute. So that's a squared minus b squared. So you should have these written down. It's going to become really useful when we start factoring, because if you see something in this form, you know that it has to turn into this. Otherwise, it's like, what do I do with that? So it's really good to have this information. And what we'll do is we'll look at some specific examples so that you can understand what we're doing. Okay. So let's start with m plus 3 squared. Okay. So m plus 3 squared is the same as m plus 3 times m plus 3. So remember our double distribution. I'm going to do m times both things and the 3 times both things. So m times m is m squared, plus m times 3 is 3m, plus 3 times m is 3m, plus 3 times 3 is 9. And when I simplify, I get m squared plus 6m, because I'm combining like terms. 3m plus 3m is 6m plus 9. Okay, and this is my answer. And notice that this is a squared, this is b squared, and this is 2 times a times b. So 2 times 3 times m, because I had two 3m's. So you don't have to use this format, the rule, in order to get it. You can just multiply it by normal. The key here is understanding that this means this. That's the most common mistake, is that somebody will put m squared plus 9 squared, and that's not correct because you're missing the middle term. I would always take this and write it out like this to make sure that you're not making that mistake. Okay, because I see that a lot when people are learning this skill. So let's take a look at another example. Okay, again, this is not r squared minus 25 squared, because this is r minus 5 times r minus 5. And so you need that middle term, okay? Again, write it out like this, okay? First term times the first, your double distribution, so this times this and this times this. So r times r is r squared, r times minus 5 is minus 5r, minus 5 times r is minus 5r, minus 5 times a minus 5 is a plus 25. Okay, remember you're thinking about this as negative 5 times negative 5. And so that's going to be a positive. When you combine like terms, a negative 5r and a negative 5r is a negative 10r. Okay, and again, you see the first term squared, the last term squared, and it's the double the product of the two. Okay, so those are just a couple of brief examples on that. Okay. Let's take a look at the other case, and then we'll just do a few more examples with a little bit more like coefficients other than 1 in the front of the first term. All right, so if I have something like this, this is going to be, again, it's already in the side by side, so I'm going to multiply it out. I'm going to show you that the term disappears, but since they're the same number here, but one's plus and one's minus, the middle term is going to cancel. So I'm going to do my double distribution. N times n is n squared. N times minus 7 is minus 7n, plus 7n, because plus 7 times n And then plus 7 times minus is a minus 49. Okay. When I combine like terms, I have opposites in the middle. Negative 7m plus 7n are going to cancel out, so I'm just left with n squared minus 49. And that's why the product of a sum and a difference, the middle term just disappears because they're going to cancel each other out. Okay, they're the same things but opposites. All right, so let's take a look at a couple of different examples that where the coefficient is not 1. Okay, so when I look at this, this is like we just did. This is the product of a sum and a difference. So I'm going to do what I just did, but again, you could use the format of practicing this. Okay, so 6m times 6m is 36m squared. Okay, because again, you're multiplying the coefficients together too. 6m times positive 5 is 30m. Negative 5 times 6m is negative 30m. And negative 5 times positive 5 is minus 25. Again, I got a plus 30m and a minus 30m. Those are going to cancel. So 36m squared minus 25. And again, if I use my rule for the product of a sum and a difference, it's the first term squared minus the second term squared. And so that's what I do end up with. Okay, let's take a look at another example. So looking at this, okay, this is not the sum or difference, product of a sum or a difference. It's the sum of squares, or the square of a sum, sorry. When we look at this, this means 2/3 m plus 6 times 2/3 m plus 6, okay? Again, I recommend that you write it out. The most common mistake is people forget the middle term when they're doing this. So writing it out like this means you're way less likely to do that. All right, so then we are going to do our double distribution. So the first term times each of the ones here. So 2/3 m times 2/3 m's, 2/3 times 2/3 is 4/9. And m times m is m squared. Plus 2/3 times 6. Remember that when you're doing this, this is actually really easy in your head. 2 times 3 is 12 divided by, 2 times 6 is 12 divided by 3 is 4. So that would be 4m. Okay, then I'm going to distribute the second term. So 6 times the 2/3 m is again going to be 4m. And 6 times 6 is 36. So my final answer is 4/9 m squared. 4m plus 4m is 8m plus 36. So again, using the double distribution to kind of get there, but be careful you don't forget the middle term because that's really a very, very, very common mistake. Okay, and that's why I recommend you writing it out and not necessarily just using the rule on this, because it's way easy just to get going and mess that up. Okay. Okay, so again, this means 4b minus 7 times 4b minus 7. Okay. If I use my double distribution, 4b times 4b is 16b squared. 4b times minus 7 is negative 28b. Negative 7 times 4b, now I'm distributing the second term, is negative 27b. And then negative times a negative is a positive 49. Okay, I'm combining my middle terms. They're not canceling because they're both negative. And I get negative 56b plus 49. Again, be very, very careful that you're not missing the middle term. The only time that you're missing the middle term is when you have things like this, where it's the same first in each and the same second, but one's plus and one's minus. That's the only time you're missing a middle term. And it's really, this is the kind where people tend to make that mistake. Okay? I hope this helps, and have a fabulous day.